Prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us here today to gather and see these wonderful students present to us. Thank you for the school board and all the students and the faculty and the staff. Give us your wisdom to make great decisions for them in the school district. Amen.
We'll call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. I have to note that there is a quorum present and the agenda was posted in a timely fashion. Next item on the agenda is board recognition.
January is Board Appreciation Month, and I know just from my standpoint, I want to say thank you to all of the work that y'all do. A lot of the leadership and things that go on that nobody sees. The time that you spend up here, the leadership you give to us. I firmly believe, and the longer I've been here, that what goes well in a district starts in this boardroom, and it starts with you guys and the fact that you're working for this community and these kids. And it's certainly sometimes a thankless job, but we want to recognize the job and the sacrifices that each of you do and say thank you. I know we've got some stuff here from Mr. Wyndham and a certificate here from the district, and then we've got some lovely boys and girls out here that are showing up in your honor that we'd like to invite up. Ms. Fouch, whenever you're ready.
Well, this was all under the direction of Mrs. Hutchins and Mr. Brown. This is our student leadership group, but we are cooking up a great year, so we figured they could cook you up something and tell you all about it. So go on up there, guys.
Good evening, I'm Corley Cunningham, Secretary and a 5th grade member of the Mod Leadership Council. This year marks the 27th anniversary of School Board Appreciation Month. The 2022 School Board Appreciation theme is Rising Above. To rise above means to overcome, not let difficult things change you. Thank you for giving the students at Mod ISD the tools we need to rise above any obstacle that comes our way.
I am Shelby Bradshaw, 5th grade member of the 2022 Mod Elementary Council. We would like to take this time to say thank you to our Board of Education for your leadership and commitment to our students, staff, and community. We appreciate the time and effort you make to make our school the best.
I'm Logan Foster and also a 5th grade member of the Leadership Council. Since the theme for 2022 is Rising Above, the Leadership Council made banana nut bread after school today. At this time, the remaining members will introduce themselves and present each Mod ISD school board member with personal vote.
My name is Brady Fields. My name is Bill Hawkins. My name is Reed Coleman. My name is Nellie Atherton.
If you like the bread, there is a recipe attached.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Here. I'll put one here for this guy here that's missing.
Oh, it's still warm.
And you might want to,
Mr. Lane.
right here, right over there, the other guy that's missing. They'll be here in a minute.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
Hey, Corley, when you tell them what you just said, I'll really heard it.
If you like the bread, there is a recipe attached and a complimentary spatula.
And the spatulas have the Mod M on the top that Mr. Brown made.
Oh, look at
And our
that.
3D printer in our Santa Claus room.
So it's all tied up so you can't see it, but it's
That is
adorable.
pretty
cool.
So they baked the bread all by themselves. All we did was stand there and make sure, nothing got on fire.
That's an important job.
Thank you. They stirred, they mashed, they measured, they used math. They didn't realize math could be fun. They found it out today. So they did make that bread. So thank y'all so
Thank
much
y'all.
for allowing me.
Appreciate y'all very much. You don't know when you're done with yours.
But you can hang it on your grill.
Yeah, it does look cool.
I'm cold.
Hang out for Riverview Marathon. That's the completion of Island 3.
Yes, if y'all would like, thank y'all so much. You are free to go, or you can stay and listen to the taper report.
It's only about 4 more hours.
Sure, absolutely.
Are you ready? I can see that.
You're gonna shake my hand here?
Grandparents and father can't be here, so.
Father just walked in. You want to replay it one more time?
Steve?
She's going to junior high day, but I'm calling Karen,
Just like Karen.
pick her up there.
She's fine. Yes, we're going to move on.
All right, that's exciting. Next item on the agenda is conduct public hearing on district's taper Texas Academic Performance Report.
All right, we'll have Ms. Sanders is going to do a little presentation. We'll welcome Ms. Sanders. Yes, clap, say hello.
Standing over.
Hello, Ms. Sanders, it's good to see you.
Thank you. Your favorite month.
Better make it quick. Halen and Nate are in charge of Wrigley, so they may forget that he's there.
Maybe the best supervision they've had all week.
You got your Salem.
So this is data that we have, the testing data we have seen have been presented earlier this year, but this is actually our tape report that we are required to do an annual public hearing on every year here in January. So with that, Ms. Sanders, if you're ready.
So I've listed on here our scores for STAR for this past year. I think you've already seen all of this, but this is in the report. So it gives you our score, the region score, and the state score. So you can see how we did in our third grade for reading and math.
And these scores that are being put here, these are going to be approach level.
Yes, they are.
What the state would consider to be passing. So this is our approach level as a comparison.
Yeah.
So we can see third grade above both regional and state.
And in the fourth grade, they had the reading, math, and writing. You can see how we did in relation to the region and the state. Pretty good.
Good.
Then also the fifth grade, they take reading, math, and science. So we're pretty far above what the region and the state was. You got sixth grade, reading and math. We're right there where the region and the state were. Seventh grade again, that's reading, math, and writing. See us compared to the region and the state. Our eighth grade, they take reading, math, science, and social studies. So they take 4 tests in the 8th grade. See those scores.
One of the areas we talk about at times, one of the lowest scoring areas across the state and region you can see is that 8th grade social studies test. So that's an area that we're continuing to work on and work with, but relatively comparative, our scores are still going to be above, but that's one of the lowest scoring tests that we'll see across the board. We talk about these junior high scores, we've seen good gains both in 6th and 7th grade relative to the state and the region from where we were several years ago. And then our 8th grade, you can see that we're, again, in most of these categories above both state and the regional averages. So we'll move to high school.
And then for the end of course, they take 5 of those. They take English 1 and English 2. They take algebra and biology. So as a freshman, they're taking English, algebra, and biology. They take 3 of those their freshman year. They take English 2 their sophomore year. And then on the next slide, you'll see their U.S. history, which is their junior year.
We talked about this one previously, our U.S. history score. This has kind of been an anomaly for us. We've been in the high to mid-90s the last 5 to 6 years. So something we're certainly looking at here. We were a little surprised by this lower score than what we had seen.
Is that what seniors this year?
That'll be seniors this year.
Okay.
So even though this one we are below in, it's one that really is not, that we've really performed much better to pass on that.
We were 94% last year.
Yes, sir. We've been in the mid-90s and our meet percentages have been higher.
We did 100%.
Go ahead, sir.
So we get 100% vote?
Yeah. So we've been in the high 90s most of the time, so this was a little bit of an anomaly for us, but certainly something we'll continue to watch. All grades?
And this just tells you for all the grades that we have, this is the average of what those were. So again, you'll see we're above the region and the state in every subject. And the writing has gone away. This was the last year for the writing.
Standalone writing test, so the writing test will now be built into the reading test, which is going to be a big difference. So when we start looking at scores coming in the future, that certainly could impact, because that's now going to be embedded. Last time they did this would have been in the EOC, when EOCs first came out. That was about 10, 12. They put them in and got rid of them very quickly because students weren't scoring near as well on those embedded tests. So it is something that the standard, one issue that we have when it's a standalone writing is it's really, they grade you on, what was it, 46 lines, is that what it was? You had 46 lines, and after 46, they had quit grading it, so we were teaching everybody to write everything within this short amount of time, and that's really not how kids write. So I do think it's a good thing that we're moving away from a standalone written test into an embedded written test, but that'll be something to come ahead on later.
Schools around us.
So social studies, you can see we're right, kind of in the mix there. We're typically been a little higher than them, but again, we were below on our 11th grade this past year.
And this is our attendance rate, and they are a little behind on the years on this because this is 2019-20, and then you'll see below that the 18-19. You can see what our attendance rate, 98.
1920 was a little skewed because of that's when coronavirus happened. Those last 6 weeks is why you're going to see a significant jump in everybody's attendance because it was 100% during that shutdown time. So these next several years, we're probably going to see some deviation in those attendance rates on how they're going to be reported.
Then our graduation rates, this is for 2020 and for 2019, and we were at 100% both of those years. This is our dual enrollment, our students who take college classes. This will tell you this is for the 1920 school year, the ones with the English, math, the social studies, and the science. So you can see that for the region, the state, and for us.
And one offer that we do have in English that's a little different is we do have our college course that we'll be taking at TC, so it's not necessarily a dual credit course, but if they pass it and pass a test, then they can get credit here
prep.
locally. So it's called college prep. So we do have kids that are taking it rather than necessarily dual credit.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Did we see a significant increase when we started scholarship in these dual credits?
A lot.
And it continues to work well?
I will tell you that the district paying for dual credit courses is one of the great benefits of Mauldin.
Great program.
I can tell you personally, my kid was out 27 hours and was able to get his associate's degree with one summer session of core classes because Mauldin offers what we offer. And then as a parent, just like all parents, those courses are paid for by the district. So it really takes away that opportunity where only the well-to-do are able to take those dual credits. So absolutely, it's a great program for us.
And this, I don't know what happened to my little chart. That was, I didn't think I had them all messed up. But for the college and career ready, for the class of 2020, you'll see we were at 61.3%. And you can see with the region and the state.
So we're going to see later that we were well above this, and the previous year we were in the mid-90s and really have a goal when we talk about CCMR later to be in the mid-90s. Now our 60% fell. This was the class of 2020, so this would have been the COVID class when we lost the end of that semester. So part of what we lost were our certificates, some of the industry certificates, some of the tests that we give for them to get to that CCMR. So we lost a large chunk. Because of that, what we've done is restructured it and put it earlier than that last semester.
Yeah, I think all of our seniors have already taken a test and have a certification already for this year.
We'll see later that we'll address this in our CCMR goals. In the class of 2020, we saw a 30% drop off. Because of that, we lost that spring part of it. So we restructured it, and we anticipate to be back in the 90s again next year. So it does run 1 year. So this was Brian's graduating class of 2020.
Is that when we lost the military stuff counting too?
Military went away on that class, and then we lost all of those, some of the dual credit welding certificates, we lost the floral design certificates, we lost several of those that were to be given in the spring semester that we were not able to give when all the kids went home. So we've moved those around to offer them earlier, so we have more opportunities in the future. But you can see we're still kind of, even with that, we're the state average. So we actually saw most of those both fell this past year across.
And then this is the class of 2020, the ACT. You can see the average from the students that were tested. You see ours is 93.5%, and you look at the region and the state, we test almost every student here on campus. So I think that kind of is one of the reasons our average score is not as high, because we do encourage everybody to take it. So you can see what our,
What was the, let me go back to the
right.
The region average is 28.
State average.
well, I don't know that that was quite, I don't know that that's the
I might
score.
not put that in right.
I think it's 20.8.
I don't think it's 30, the highest you can score is 30.
Yeah,
The
that's
regional's
right.
20.8.
That's what I went to go pull here.
I was just assuming that maybe the
We've
three
always
made it
been
to
around
the two.
20.6 or 20.7. We've always been right there on it.
All right, so ACT, let's redo our little ACT scores here. So ACT score, the region average in all subjects is a 20, and the state average is also a 20, so we're gonna be right. Now this has us listed out at 19 on that for our all subjects. Is there another one I'm missing, Amanda?
I don't know, I can't find it.
Pages that
I'm on page 21 of 28 is the actual scores for average ACT for the annual test. I see a 19 was our score, a 20 is the region, and a 20 is the state. Now, we did see a drop, and I know we talked about this once before, that because we were testing all kids, we were anticipating these next couple of years, that was going to drop. We've moved away from offering the true AC to all students, and what we've gone into now is we're giving a practice ACT. So they get a practice score, and then they can determine whether they want to retake it or not retake it. We still offer it here for them, but what we found is when we offered it to all students, if they got a 14 and they're just going to go to junior college, they never would retake it. So we didn't feel that was really what we wanted to continue. So we'll give them a practice ACT. They get to score. They can decide whether they want to go take it again, and we take some prep classes. So, but that should be 20 or 19, 20, 20 is what those look like to me, based on this. All right, we'll move to graduates enrolled in college. So this falls about 2 years behind. So this is actually, this will be Gage's senior year in
Yeah,
18, 19.
They graduated
Or McKenna.
in 19,
It's McKenna's.
yeah. And this also kind of is skewed because this is from Texas College, and we do have a lot of kids that go to SAU and to some of the Arkansas schools that are close by, and those do not calculate into this. So this is only students who graduated and enrolled in a Texas college.
impressive that we match up that well with the state and Central State and all that.
And then, like she said, we do lose. So anybody that leaves the state of Texas will not reflect in that. They show up as a none or a zero if they don't go to the state of Texas. So with those kids, we've had a handful of kids every year seem like go to Arkansas. So that really probably is a higher number than that.
And this is just a breakdown of our students, how many was in each grade for this past school year. So you can see kind of the big grades, and
So that's not this year,
it's last year.
last year's student enrollment. So that 43 class is now in that first grade class. Pre-K would be in kindergarten. Our current pre-K class enrollment is actually
Very small.
Something we haven't seen lately, but it's much smaller.
It's just people not wanting to bring their kids because of COVID and so forth.
Across the state of Texas, the two grades that got hit the highest in enrollment during COVID has been kindergarten and pre-K. They either just kept them home, kept them in daycare, didn't send them to school. We'll find out more. We didn't have that issue last year. We had 33, which was actually a sizable class for us. So this year was a little concerning, something we'll have to continue to watch with pre-K. I think our numbers, Ms. Fish, what pre-K is 16, what are we in pre-K, 20?
20 kids?
Yeah, I got 20 on here. All right,
11 and 9 are now.
20 total. And then there's our high school numbers from last year.
And then this just is a breakdown of the total of our staff. So we have, let's see, 38.8 teacher, and this is for last year also. And it breaks it down from professional support, campus administration, central administration, our aides, and then our auxiliary staff.
So this will be pulled out of our PEAM system, so it's going to be dependent on how we're coding salaries is when they pull those out. So that's why you'll see some points, 0.6 point, and those. That's why it doesn't come out even. Some of that's going to be pulled out of other coding. So we do 1/8. Every period has a code to it, so sometimes it may pull. That's why it doesn't always equal. We don't really have a 0.6 administrator somewhere. Well, I don't know. Depends on who you ask, I guess.
And then this is kind of an interesting thing I always think to see, the teachers and how much years of experience they have. And you can see, our, from 1 to 5 years, we've got, 8.8, there's 9 in the, then you look over 30 years, we've got 5.8 that's, that's quite a bit. You don't see very many that stick around for that long, so.
Research tells us from 0 to 5, it's about 60% that will stay in. So to come to a place you're seeing that, and in all honesty, that even in the hiring the last several years, we've been able to hire some experienced teachers and not a whole lot of just brand new and beginning teachers. And I think that's a testament of teachers wanting to come work here that are coming from other districts. I think our principals have done a good job recruiting and hiring those folks. And then as a district, we've done a really good job of continuing to hold on to a lot of those folks.
And then you also, in your report every year, have to report if you've had any violent or criminal incidents, and we did not. So
All right.
that is it.
That is it. Any other questions or discussions y'all would like to have over our TAPER report? This will go out and be posted, I guess we'll put it on the website tomorrow.
Is that 12 to 1 teacher to student ratio for the average, or is it higher?
We're going to have the state average. There'll be a state average in there on the back of that. It is going to be actually, we're going to be lower than the state's. The state's 14.5. We're 12.3, so we have fewer students per teacher here. And again, that takes all teachers. So some of the larger districts, their classrooms actually have 20 plus, but because they have coaches and instruction and other teachers that may serve, that'll reduce that number. So you think of like a Texarkana or a bigger district that may have a whole lot of support in there, sometimes that will still reduce that number. They certainly will have more than 14 in a class. But for us, our number is still pretty low.
Money-wise, that might not be great, but education-wise, it's quite pretty.
Right, it is. And so one of the things that we look at when Mr. Van Deaver does his budget is we'll look at staff and teachers per student. And if we start seeing that number really dip where there's fewer and fewer students per staff member, then as a board and as a district, financially, that's certainly something we've got to continue to monitor. We've been relatively consistent. Now with COVID money and some of the folks that we've hired, we're going to see that dip because we did add some staff this year with some of the COVID money that we're going to talk about. I guess now, whenever we're ready. Anything else for TAPER?
Hearing nothing, we will move on. Thank you. Next item, conduct public hearing on ESSER 3 use of funds plan.
All right, so we got our ESSER 3 funds last year. We were waiting on a confirmation of some new funds from the state of Texas, which has confirmed that we will receive those. So our new totals here at the bottom will receive over the next 3 years $743,114. And here is our use of funds. So for payroll, we have budgeted $538,000, which includes using that for instructional support systems, our HB 45 tutoring system. Ms. Hudgens, that was here, is one of those individuals that we will code to that. So this is the added salaries that we'll be looking at, as well as salaries that are already on staff that we're going to code out to ESSER. The total payroll cost will be $538,865. We've coded, or budgeted $204,249 in supplies and materials over the next 3 years. And then we had to set aside a 20% with this 149 for learning loss mitigation. Basically, how do we close the gap with COVID loss that we've seen? And we're doing that through summer school. We're doing that through our tutoring groups, our interventionists. We're actually going to spend more probably than what that is, but we had to at least put that 149. And then we just kind of talked about how we got that. We put out a survey last spring from May to July to take in community engagement. This is who we engaged with both at meetings and that survey. We had discussions at 2 different board meetings, the 24th and the 28th. And this is kind of what we had indicated as what we needed. Social and emotional needs of students, technology integration and upgrades, and then academic and instructional support. So we wanted to just present that because we did receive the extra 200, I think it was 247,000 was our new addition to that. So we have submitted an amendment to TEA, but that is our current use of funds for ESSER. Any question or comment?
You made the public out there.
Any? Yes. All
Hearing
right,
none,
that's all we got on it then.
close the public hearing. Next is public comments. Having no one, next item is communications.
No, sir, I'm sorry.
Next item, consent agenda. We have minutes of the December 16th regular meeting, monthly financial report, and amendment to the 21-22 budget. Any board member have any items they want to discuss or pull from the consent agenda for discussion? We have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Second by Gap. All in favor, raise your right hand. It is unanimous. Next item is discuss the May 7th, 2022 joint election options.
So we have typically, in our elections, partnered here with the city, and the county's been able to provide us voting equipment. However, this year, because there are constitutional amendments, Bowie County is going to have to host an entire separate election. We talked to Mr. McCoy, there at the Bowie County Elections Office. He was concerned that they will not have the equipment for us, for them to be able to give to us if we need for an election. So our options would be we could rent our own to hold that here, or we could partner with Bowie County and allow them to run our elections, including the early voting, the order, the paperwork. They kind of take over all of that. A lot of laws and rules have changed, specifically with early voting and early voting locations and times. At this point, I think our best option is to partner with Bowie County for this May 7th election. After this year, we certainly can reevaluate that, but given that typically they do not have an election in May, we really don't run into this. But this year, with the constitutional amendments and them having to offer a full one, it's going to give us an issue. What it would mean to us is that our election places would be the 3 main Bowie County election positions, or places, which would be Bowie County Courthouse, the Southwest Center in Texarkana, and Walnut Church of Christ would be the 3 early voting locations. What it would mean is we would not have early voting at Maud. For the May 7th election, it will be at City Hall. But during that early election period, they would have to go to Bowie County, either courthouse, that Southwest Center in Texarkana, or Walnut Church of Christ for early voting. The good side of that is, with this, they're going to have more times and more options to be able to go to those than what we may have had in the past. If we cancel an election, then we don't have to worry about it. If we have one, that we do. The other concern that we have is if we rent our own equipment and do it our own, we're going to be stuck with that cost, whether or not, because we're going to have to do that currently. So my recommendation for this election would be for us to look at doing a joint election with Bowie County.
I got a
Yes,
question.
sir.
I agree with what you're saying, but what equipment do we need besides a ballot box?
Got to have the electronic ballot box. We also have to have, it's an ADA, it's a very specific electronic ADA device along with some technology. So the other side of it is there's a cybersecurity piece that we have to buy. They have to be able to set up and install to meet all of their, so there was a lot more to it, Terry, than what I thought about.
I remember that now that you brought that up, where they.
And so that was the piece that they really can't guarantee necessarily that we'll have if every city, every school district, and Bowie County all have to host one.
This is not an action item, right? This is.
Now, this is just a discussion before. The next item will be to order an election. On that order, if we choose to go with Bowie County, we would have those Bowie County places of election. And then we would need to go ahead and order this because our next board meeting actually falls after the deadline. Now, we can, any time after that, if we don't have an election, we certainly can't cancel it. But because of the way our board meetings fall, we really need to make the decision tonight on that board ordering. So,
Doing the joint,
yes.
one, we're saving money, but two, we're not out money if we cancel it.
Right.
If we do it here, we're committed to
We'd
the
be
cost
committed
of
to
the
that,
commitment.
and we may not get all of that back. And again, the other side of that too, if you look at those early voting hours, this past legislative session, a lot of the voting rules have changed. There's a whole lot of new stuff that's coming in that we would have to do and take over. And I think an added benefit is they're going to make sure that we're meeting all of those things as well.
So when you go in for an early voting, you'd go in and ask for a mod school?
You would go there and tell them that you're here to vote, so you can do all your early voting, and then whatever school district you live in, you could vote for that.
So it's not all on the
election.
ballot?
No.
Okay. I just wondered how that works. Oh, yeah.
So they would direct you to those, so. When you first go
When you
in.
first go in, you put in, they sign you in, where you're registered, they're gonna hand you that small ballot anyway.
Right there.
Yeah.
I believe that's how that
You're
works.
not gonna have to ask for it, they're gonna give it to you whether you want it.
And I can get more information on that. We just talked to them about how it worked as far as those early locations. And again, this is not a long-term commitment. This would be only for the May 7th. I certainly feel like when we have that opportunity, it's good to have it here, but given everything we've got going on at this point, it's going to be difficult for us.
Probably definitely bulk up your voting totals, since you're voting for everything.
Could be.
I don't know how much the amendments will pull out. I don't know what they're going to be, though.
I don't know.
And there's two specific ones, and I don't remember what they are. But again, that came out of the special session, so typically the county doesn't have May elections, and this is usually not an issue.
Or what they're counting on.
So,
All right.
but
Any other questions?
I'm good. Answer my question.
Next item is 10, order the school board election for May 7, 2022.
So we have the order here that would basically give us the time and date, the May 7th, what positions are up. The three positions that we have up this year are position 1 that's currently held by Terry Johnson. It's for a full 3-year term. Position 2, which is currently held by Aaron Brower, and position 3, which is currently held by Rusty Bailey. So it would be those three for May 7th, 2022. And it would order that we would be with Bowie County at those 3 early voting locations, and then our main one would be here. With this, it also, Bowie County, we typically have named voting clerks. With this order, it would be the Bowie County voting clerks. We wouldn't have to specifically name, as we have in the past when we've done our own. So we would need an action to order the school board trustee election for May 7th of 2022.
And you join it with Bowie County.
Yeah, we need that with Bowie County. I think all we have to do is do the order, is that correct, Ms. Holly? Yeah, I think all we have to do is that. We just wanted to have a discussion
Okay.
about it ahead of time because it is something that is different than what we've typically done. If we have an election, we'll have an MOU that'll come back to us that we'll, at that point, partner with. We don't have to make that right now, but if we have an election, then we'll have that MOU that'll come back. But right now, we do need to do the order because the deadline is before our next board meeting.
Any other questions or discussion? Have a motion to approve the order general election held on May 7, 2022.
Move that we order the school board trustee election for May 7th, 2022.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Gap. All in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. This is information item, principal report, athletic director's report.
All right, Ms. Fouch, come on up.
Well, gentlemen, this is your month. Congratulations and thank you so much for all of your willingness to rise above all this craziness that's going on at this point. So all that being said, you can see on our attendance, it is a little lower. And we didn't get hit the week that everybody was getting hit around us, but we got kind of hit this week. We have a lot of kids out. And in the elementary, our staff actually got hit the last week, but they're coming back. And so we're slowly but surely, y'all saw those scores, we're gonna continue those great things happening, and our teachers are full-fledged, going full force. So we are excited. We have a lot of readers. We took them bowling when they got back from the first of the month. We had over 100 kids that reached their goal, and when I say reach their goal, they had to earn points, but then they also had to keep the 85% accuracy. They couldn't just take a test, fail it, earn a point or no points. They had to get their points and then with the 85%, because if you looked on that, 85 or higher usually in every test means a mastered level. So that's what we're striving for. Then we had our first ever science fair at the elementary that we had some great participants. They were a little nervous, but we had a judge from the Arkansas side, one that used to be a science teacher here, and then Ella Duran, who also has a science background, that was from here. So they judged. And we had several great finalists. I mean, I learned so many fun things about how can plants grow. And did you know that a pickle will glow if it has more sodium? I don't know. Anyway, so that was some of our science experiments, and they will travel to, or they will, I think they went virtual now, but they'll get to present at Region 8. And then from then on, I don't know, maybe state, I don't know. Hey, we've got some scientists though. And then next week is our it's our week of kindness at our school and for the Vermont City. So they presented to the student, the city council, and they have proclamated all that. We showed all that the last time. So next week it is. So this is what's going to be happening. So if you see our kids walking around, and they'll tell you all about being kind. They'll drop some kindness in your bucket. So that's what we got. But again, thank you guys so much for everything that you do for our kids, our teachers, and our community. We couldn't do it all without you. So thank you again.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
100 kids over.
Over 100.
It kept growing. It kept growing. I think they had the whole thing.
Because the league might have been happy.
That's right. All right, looking at attendance wise for us, I know Ms. Fouch already kind of covered her side of it as well. We got hit a little bit with the recent surge. Our attendance has dropped down about 3 points from where we normally are. We're normally at about 95. We were down to 92 for the month, which talking to a few other schools around, we're actually doing better than some of them. So pretty proud of our kids for being resilient and keep coming up and keep trying to battle through it. You'll notice this year we have about 17 more kids than we had last year in 6 through 12, just for this beginning semester, which is a pretty good deal for us. It means we're growing, we're getting kids that want to be here. Matter of fact, I have 2 or 3 phone calls this past week of people wanting to enroll and come into our district. They saw several things that are going on, and they like it. One of the things that we did this past month, we had a blood drive. They drove up in the back. They were very sanitary on how they did it. I mean, they wore masks. They made you clean yourself, with your hand sanitizers and everything else, and you had to go in a specific area. And so they were very, very good with that. But because of that, there was a lot of people that got, like myself, I'll tell you right now, I was taking an antibiotic and they discarded me and wouldn't let me give. So we only got 18 units from our normal. But this month we usually do about 25 to 30 units total. So we're not quite half of that, but we still gave plenty. And they were very appreciative of it. They told us that there was a lot of people that were not able to give this year like normal. And so they are very low. And so they're very happy that we were able to give anything. We did complete our project celebration, which gives us a $700 donation for the school. Ms. Harrell takes care of that, and she will use it wisely, I'm sure. She's pretty fired up about it. Also, our Fort Worth Ag trip that we recently had with Mr. Barron was a success. If you got a chance to look on Facebook, Janie Reed and Jordan Crowell were there, and they built a chicken coop, and they got a blue ribbon for it. Talk to them if you get a chance, because they will tell you all kinds of stuff about how much they enjoyed it. Those two girls never thought they would ever enjoy that. And they said, even though it was freezing cold from about 7 o'clock in the morning to 1:30 on Saturday, they enjoyed every bit of it, and especially the cinnamon roll.
We could have left at 11 because they didn't get judged for 3 hours It's the second to last project. So
Yeah.
they had to sit there and wait. And then they set it out and they did well.
It was awesome. I was very proud of them.
The presentation was, they did well, presented.
They do present well.
They do
Those two
present
girls
well. They do.
talked really well. I was really proud of them.
They got babes.
Yes, and they got babes. Things coming up this February, we got, of course, the winter break coming up on February 14th and 18th. But one of the big additions that we have coming up that I wanted to make sure everybody knew about is we do have a Valentine's dance, and it's going to try to involve every grade level at different time periods. That way that we can try to have a little fun with the kids. I know it's been kind of one of those things where we've taken away a lot of things in the last couple of years. This was a chance we thought that we could kind of get them back out to have a little fun. And we can still monitor how we do things with it. So there will be an elementary portion of it. Ms. Fouch is working with Ms. Litchfield to get it all lined out like we want it. Middle school and high school, we're following very similar to our old patterns of the way we did our dances. However, there will be a few adjustments there. But the kids are really fired up about it, and they're some of the main ones that are involved in putting it together with the junior class. So they're going to help chaperone everything and make sure everything's run right as far as the middle school. And of course, we'll have some adults there as well, high school as well. Other than that, students of the month, my 6th graders, Gage Wright, 7th grader, Lauren Wall, 8th grade, Brooklyn Osborne, 9th grade, Lane Nevels, 10th grade, Chris Henderson, who plays a mean set of drums, 11th grade, Janie Reed, and 12th grade, Addison Roberts. And then our faculty member of the month was Mr. Corey Fothergill. He's going above and beyond and help drive and volunteer and do everything he can. So we really appreciate his effort. Other than that, that's about it. Any questions? Anything that you can think of that may have come up? Oh, absolutely. Yes. So it was Rise Above was the theme, and so a part of that, of course, was the coffee cup for the coffee to help you rise up, and of course a breakfast biscuit never hurts anyone. So there's a little small gift in there, gift card in there to stop by McDonald's on the way out to the fishing hole or wherever you may be going. So, all right.
That good tagline. Come on.
What?
I gave you that good tagline.
Which part?
The coffee rise.
The coffee rise above. Yes. Now Miss Fouch takes credit for everything I do. So yes, that was a part of it.
Mr. Wyndham, I promise you, I also feel your pain.
That's what I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't like these taglines. When you say it.
Coach Turner is still over at the junior high ball game. I do have his report. There you go. Go right ahead. We've got boys basketball is 1-2. They just got a win over LK. The other 2 losses were pretty close. We're going to have the great trek of everyday basketball with some of the COVID schools that closed down. UIL did lift their requirements so we can actually make up games almost every night of the week. And starting next week, it'll be pretty close to that. We'll be playing multiple games to try to make up for those schools that canceled. Girls basketball are currently 1-4. They also have a few games that have lost. They haven't lost near as many. They'll have some big games coming up. I think Friday's a big game for them at Detroit. That was a close game. Detroit beat us on a 3-point shot here in the 4th quarter. So that's a game that they need to get back in. Junior high boys overall are 2-2. The girls are coming a long way. Most of our girls in junior high are 7th graders, so we are playing a 7th grade mainly, both on the A and B. So our 7th grade, what's listed as our A team is primarily made up of 7th grade girls as well. There's 3 8th graders, and I think the other 5 are 7th graders that are playing 8th graders. So certainly they are competing and getting after it. When I left the game earlier, it was a 3-point game between us and Detroit. So they are having to play up this year. We got powerlifting that's fixing to start. They got the FCA this Saturday, and then we are planning to host meets on the 3rd and 24th. I think that's, with anything right now, is an asterisk depending on what COVID looks like in our area, but we are planning to host those two. And then just some of the general things, as off-season says, is going well. We've got kids that are faster than what they have been in the last 3 years in this 24-second run, as well as the first 300-pound power clean. Girls off-season, starting to see some buy-in from the girls and just overall general athleticism. All schedules should be up for our online spring. Brady's done a good job of keeping the game changes, and I know certainly as COVID's hit, the power of Facebook and immediately being able to change things overnight has been a great resource for us to have. And then still working on getting all the batting cages up down there. I think everything seems to be working well, so they're just trying to finish those around. His quote in there is that we're going to have some of the nicer facilities around. They've come a long way. Certainly have some things down there we can still work on, but overall, come a long way in the last several years.
So powerlifting, are going to be allowing fans in?
Milford, you can come. You can be there. At this point,
I wouldn't want to take somebody's pass.
like I said, we certainly will see in 2 weeks what the numbers around here look like before we host a large-scale powerlifting meet.
I'll give my spot up for repairing.
For a parent, I'll keep that in mind.
How many more basketball games do we have?
Basketball, we're fixing to start into the second round, but boys are missing 2, so
You have 9 games.
9 total. Junior high finishes on the 7th of February, then has 2 tournaments after that.
So baseball field will be ready.
Baseball field itself is going to be ready. Now we've got an issue with ryegrass. Our ryegrass came up and looked really good, and then the freeze hit and killed it basically. So we've lost that rye where we've replanted, but it's going to take time for it to. So there's some out there, but it came in, looked really great. When that freeze hit, I think us, New Boston, one other field are all kind of in that same boat. We went ahead and jumped on it and went ahead and we just got some cheaper annual stuff to put on it just to try to get it to come up. I don't know that perennial is going to come back or not. But as far as the infield and that maintenance, all that stuff's going to be good.
About to get hit again this week.
So I think part of that was the timing of that freeze where it had been really sunny and that grass had really come in and grown up really well, and then that freeze just hit. That perennial, we've got some annual rye out there that we planted around the batting cage where it was mud. All of that made it, but both fields that had that perennial stuff, it didn't make it. So I don't know what the issue is between that. We've tried that stuff the last 2 years. It's a nicer deal. It's what the colleges have used. We've had issues both years. Turner and I talked about it this week that next year we just may go back to just the annual stuff and quit trying to mess with whatever that perennial is that we've been messing with the last 2 years. So the field itself will be ready. The mounds are ready. The inside of the baseball and softball field are cut. They've got a little more work to do, but they're in good shape. We talked about this last week. All of those things are further along this year than what they have been the last several years. With having John here and being able to do that, we got to get the cage up, and they got to finish some mound work over there on the bullpen area and do some stuff there. But work on that little storage building. But all that should be ready. But as far as the fields, will be unfortunately with that rye situation, it may be. I don't know what it's going to look like. So
Playable, maybe not pretty.
it will be playable. It just may not be as green as we're used to at the beginning of the year, but the ryegrass should come in hopefully. With this new annual plan.
These kids play on dead grass before.
I know it's not what we want, and it was really that stuff that came in. I don't know if y'all saw it down there. It looked really good. It looked really nice. And like I said, that freeze hit, it just turned a dark green and then a black, and now it's no longer.
It looks pretty.
It'll look good. It may not when it starts. So that's both baseball and softball field had the same issue. Anyway, that's where we are with it.
Any other information on it?
That was all that he had. No, I think that's all. Number 12.
All right, update discussion of COVID-19.
COVID-19 certainly has come back. Since the beginning of January, we've had 58 positive students at 28 elementary and 30 6 through 12. along with 13 staff members over that time. Now, we've been somewhat fortunate in that the staff members have been staggered, and we've certainly been able to handle that. We had a couple of close calls there that first week. We've been a little bit different, which is it hit primarily our secondary school last week. And then this week, we've seen much more here on our elementary campus as far as students. Coming back Monday, we should have, I think we'll have 6 students that would still be out on each campus. So it's going to be around 10 to 12 that would still be out. So the majority of our kids and teachers should be back in school by Monday. We started our testing program here at the school, and I think the first 5 months we tested 15 individuals. And last week and a half we've tested 96 staff members and students. Now the majority of those have been negative. We're about 25% or so here at the school that have been positive. But with that, we had 100 tests, so we're pretty much out of those. We ran out end of last week. We have just a few more that we're using for some close contacts and staff members that needed to test. We've ordered those. Beginning of last week, the state said they'd ship them, but they're like everybody right now. I don't know when we'll get those back, but as soon as we do, we'd be able to start testing again for that. I think it was a helpful process for us to be able to test those kids that weren't feeling well, because it's just not COVID that we're seeing. Our attendances range anywhere from 85 to 88 to 90%. It's kind of gone up and down, but some of it's COVID, some of it's quarantine, some of it's a stomach virus, some of it's just the winter crud, sinuses. So we're seeing all gamuts of sickness back this year that we really didn't see last year. During this time, it was pretty well COVID. We really didn't see the rest of it. This year, we're seeing all of that come back. So we're going to continue to do our best to keep school open and keep kids here. We feel like this weekend will be kind of the peak, and then next week we'll start seeing a plateau, and then in the area, and then also hopefully see a drop off. I know that's what we're starting to see in our county is countywide, we've kind of plateaued at this point. So we're hoping that's kind of the tail end of this, and that will drop off. The commissioner has talked that statewide attendance is an issue. They want to continue to help schools remain open. The big issue, a lot of schools are closed because of staffing. The other one would be if you have too many kids out funding-wise. He has told us that they are looking at doing some kind of hold harmless 6 weeks attendance where we won't be penalized for this. We can file waivers if we're greater than 10% off. So that for us would be if we get below about 85%, we can file a waiver and get paid at 95%. But it's that 85 to 95, which we've been in, that you could possibly begin to lose significant ADA funding over this time. He has told us at this point they are looking at doing some kind of hold harmless that wouldn't penalize us for continuing to stay open and trying to operate. Any questions or other discussions y'all like to have on COVID? That's all I have.
Item 13, annual review of early childhood and college career military readiness goals.
All right, so we passed these, or adopted these CCMR goals last year. One of our requirements is to review those annually. So we'll do our annual review of where we are. So what we've kind of looked at here is you'll see what our goal would be, and then whether or not we're meeting our goals. So if we remember this, we've got a 5-year goal of what we want to set for. So for this one, it's 3rd grade students that meet grade level at STAR reading levels. So our goal for 2021 coming in would be at 49%. We met that goal and exceeded it by quite a bit, by 69. So we'll kind of review these today, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about some of these here in just a second, but we're going to come back and then we'll re-adopt new goals, and we'll look at what we've done, where we want to be, and what our next 5 years would be. But this is kind of a review of where we've been. So we certainly did well in 3rd grade this past year in our meets category. Like I said, our goal there was to be right around 50%. We're almost at 70. Here, this is one that we're going to come back to. We based our goals on what was called TPRI, which is the reading inventory. The state of Texas, as well as us, have adopted a new reading inventory that really is a little bit different than what these are going to be. So that's going to be something we'll come back added look. But overall, if we were to continue to kind of compare those, both in second grade and our TPR end of the year, kindergarten, first grade in reading, we felt like they were very comparable with these would be. We would have met those with TPRI, but it's really not the same scoring in there, so we don't really want to compare these just yet. But we'll come back to those for our reading inventory. But we feel very good about, Ms. Fauch, where we are reading-wise,
Yes.
end of the year, first grade, second grade.
It's the, yes, first and second are still TPR. It's the kindergarten that they moved to Tex Kia. Yeah, so
So
yeah.
we'll come back and do a little bit more on those reading ones.
It's just hard to compare because they're different kids each year. So keep that in mind when you're looking at these. I just want y'all to know how good our kids are, our teachers are working their tails off, but keep in mind, you're comparing oranges to apples on some of these percentages.
On
because
some that we
different
can,
kids.
certainly, what we look for these a lot of times, are we're gonna look at trends, are we trending up and down? And certainly the larger the district, the more that these percentages will play out. I mean, we certainly can have some of these, but if we're consistently seeing a good trend here, or if we're seeing one that's going the other way, that's certainly there.
I look at this just for like curriculum use, like where are the gaps that we need to fill in for the kids so that we can meet those kids where they are, so that we can fill those holes.
So our early childhood, this was our math goal. We set a goal to be, this is meets again. These 40 percentage tiles that we used were actually kind of the averages of the regional and state. We did well above kind of what we looked at 72%. Some of the discussion we had last year when we set these was, depending on some of these grades, we really don't want to start, and that's 30% higher than really what the average of the region in that.
We had to go off benchmark because
We went off our
tests.
benchmarks on those, but we certainly did better when we look at, that's our first math meets, and then let's look at, so these are our younger kids. So this is second graders that we used on Tier 1 of iStation. Our goal was to be at 38%. We met that goal. We were at 47% for those.
Is that like 2 kids? 47% will be like 2 kids?
Each one's probably a little more than that, probably 4.
4 kids?
4 kids
Can I
above
explain
that.
this to you?
Go ahead, Ms. Dodge.
So with TPRI, they're tested, or Tex Kia, they're tested individually, one-on-one, and they have skills there. With the iStation, they are on a computer. And so it's based on just, if you can, like, they do it for a certain amount of time. So that's why I had emailed him today, like, we need to reevaluate this because it needs to be a different system, but it's taken at different times of the month and
Ms. Faucha, what we're looking for,
I know.
and if you
It's
remember for
rough.
CCMR, don't panic to this.
I know, you know how I am.
Don't panic on this. We set this for a region, and what it is we have to have something to base our kids on. We took the averages and we talked to other school districts in the region, and that's why we set these percentages of where they are. And then our goal is to make sure that we're going to be above that, and then that we're going to be above that in each of these other categories. So we certainly aren't saying that we only want 40% of our kids to be here. That's not what that is. But when we look at that percentage at the end of the year where they are, these are averages of where we look. I mean, we certainly know that our third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders are scoring well above both state and regional averages. We're not saying that this is terrible. This is actually above what some of those others are.
I know, I like to smash those scores, so.
Get out. So here we go. Talk about smashing scores. Here's the goal is to be at 30%, and we're actually at 30%, and then we're at 63% here. Again, this is based off of what we saw in the regional when we set these averages, and our kids scored well above than what those would be. And that was for our first grade students, and then this is for our kindergarten students. I know we met this, we met here as well on this one. I think we were also right at 60%. I don't know where it went, had it in there, just like the other ones. But we'll see that these, again, that we're set above and met where we would have been in this early childhood progress measure. So our next one is our CCMR goals. This is the one I talked about before. We did not meet our goal. We were at 95%. We dropped to 61%. Again, this is the graduating class of 1920. This would be that group that lost that whole second half of the second semester. And that's actually when we had those. We'll be back above that. We already know what our scores will be for next year by what we've traced. Now, the state of Texas certainly doesn't finalize those till they get them, but we should be back in this mid-90s for next year. So we certainly didn't make it this year, but again, the reason we didn't has to do with that 1920 and the time we lost, and when we lost it, overall for that COVID. So we do feel very confident that'll come back for next year. So here are a couple of our industry certificates. We wanted to see those increase in the 5 years, from 17% of our kids receiving to 22%. We actually moved up from that 17 to 22% this past year. So we had 22 point, I think just over 22% that would have gotten industry certificates. This was one that we had some long discussions about that we really were upset about. But this is the number of kids that were getting both TSI math, they're ready for college on TSI math and TSI reading. Our previous average was 6% of our kids got both. And what we saw was that we got them really good in one but not the other. So looking at overall, we went to 29% from that 7%. If you go back and look in there, now we're starting to get back up there what regional averages were. We certainly were well below here. Now we had to go back and have some conversations over why those kids weren't getting it. So a couple of things. For our dual credit, for TSI, you have to pass a TSI to take college courses and dual credit courses. But for us, for TC, they can get that by ELC scores. They can get that by ACT scores. So really the only kids that we had that were really taking the TSI test were kids that weren't passing high enough on some of the other ones. So our math scores were a lot lower on that. So we went back and did a few extra things that allowed us to get to this TSI level. Now with COVID, a lot of that TSI requirement's been waived because they weren't testing. So you're going to have a whole group in there that really hadn't. So I don't know how that's going to affect us moving forward.
So which group is that that scored 29?
I'd have to go back and pull if that is.
It don't matter, I was just.
I think it's the year. I think it's 2021. I don't think it's 1920. I think it's the year, actual last year's TSI, but it could be the 1920. So anyway, those are our 5-year goals. So we wanted to review those. We're required to do that at a board meeting every year. And then we're going to come back, and what we'd like to do is plug all these numbers in and start looking at what our 5-year goals would be now that we know kind of where we are the second year out of this and second year out of COVID. So we can come back and look at adopting. Ms. Fauch would like to look at possibly changing some of the numbers and systems that she had put up. Again, we had to do that, and we had to use some of the information that we already had because we didn't take STAR tests 2 years ago when we made these last year. So any questions on CCMR? These are our HB3 college career readiness goals. Like I said, we'll come back and present some of these again and look at re-adopting.
Short of the certificates, it looked like we blew them out of the water. Is that what I'm looking at?
Everything that we did on those, we really saw good increase, other than the CCR number that fell from 95 to 61. But certificates we did better on, our TSI we did better on, and we met all of our targets that we set for ourselves on the both 3rd grade and our early childhood reading and math, which we feel very confident in the systems we have in place right now in our elementary for both reading and math. We've done really well in 3rd grade. Some of our college issues, the ACT, the TSI, and that college career ready were areas that we wanted to focus on. So, I think we did pretty well in most of them. Again, that one fell, but we're going to do better on that, I know, already next year.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? Moving along, item 14, discuss facility master plan and possible future date for facility workshop.
So we've talked the last couple of times. We have a faculty survey that will be going out first part of next week. We've been working with them back and forth to have that ready to go, kind of editing it. He texted me earlier this evening and sent me the latest version of that. Our goal would be to put that out next week, let it go for a few weeks, and then try to get those results. And I'd like to have the board come back together that we can look at those survey results, review some of the things we talked about at our TASB facility update as we get ready to start having some of our facility committee meetings. Also discuss anything we'd like to fine-tune with that committee. We're really looking at having those first committee meetings end of February, moving into March. So any input this board would have as far as other members, we certainly want to take that in. But I'd like to have one more meeting where we can come back together and really discuss kind of the results of that, refresh ourselves on the facility update, and just kind of look at where things are and in what direction we as a board want to look as we move into these committees. So I was looking at possibly, we look into February, in that possibly February 10th, which is a Thursday. I think that next week we're at a school district will be on their winter break, but there's no basketball games that evening at this point. Now that could change depending on where things go.
Like at 6 o'clock?
Yeah, we'd like to just do a 6 and be here for a few hours, nothing too terribly long, but refresh ourselves on that, our facility plan that we had and our review, and then also that faculty input so that we know kind of what we've got some board input, we've got TASB's input. Now let's take a look at what some of our faculty members are getting feedback to.
I'd rather start a little earlier if it's going to be a few hours. 6 o'clock work earlier.
It's just gonna be a casual,
Yeah, it'll just be us, and it'll be kind of, it's a workshop, so it's just something that we can have discussions over and talk about those things.
February 10th?
you do
What time?
you still do 5:45?
Yeah, we can do 5:30, 5:40, whatever time this board wishes, we'll make it work.
Later works for me, just so I
Later,
can
better
go,
than
I want to
6?
take off work earlier.
6 o'clock?
6 be fine.
6 will be fine, I
6
can
will
leave
be
30
fine.
minutes early.
Terry, you good with
I mean,
6?
I can leave 45 minutes earlier, I just don't want, like,
And if we're here, we can start.
Yeah. We'll have to start whatever time we post. We can start later, we just can't start earlier.
6 is fine.
So we can start at 6, everybody good with that?
Or we can
Yeah.
get off at 3.
Gapper?
Yeah, I was looking,
Okay, I'm sorry.
we don't have it that way.
they got a
I'd get up at 3, that'd be
They
nice.
Chamber of Commerce meeting that night.
There is.
Yeah. It's 6. Maud's trying to get, City of Maud's trying to do a Chamber of Commerce, get it set up, I think.
That's the one I'm
I'll
supposed to
say
be
it's
at.
over to you. Huh?
That's what I'm supposed to be at.
Yes, sir. It don't matter to me, whatever.
We could, I think it's junior high. So our next board meeting is the 24th. We could look at moving it off of that day. But I'd like to try to have that earlier in the month, if possible. That way we have that review and we can set up other meetings afterwards. If we push it further back in there, then it may push those other ones further back. So we either that 10th, the next day we had would be that Monday, the 7th. But I think we have junior high basketball that night, is what I'd seen.
Stick with 10.
Stick with the 10th.
Stick with the 10th, okay. We'll put it February 10th at 6 o'clock.
Probably get that other one moved.
You gonna say something?
Just if there's something,
I'll talk to Susie about it.
just holler, let me know if there's something else. We'll set it at that time, if everybody's good with it.
The more important thing to have everybody read about the basketball.
Yeah, I mean, we need to try to make sure that we have everybody there. I'd sure like all y'all's opinions and for you to be able to see that information and have some constructive conversations of where we need to go.
Superintendent's report.
We got midwinter. As of now, they're still proceeding on that, so we'll have professional development there. That'll be in Austin. I'll be there from the 30th through the 2nd. Overall update for district improvements, as we talked about, athletic facilities down there, we're pretty close to having all of that finished. The walkway cover, Mike and his bunch have been back under here to redo that several times. The paint, didn't really like how that came out. He's really been pretty particular in trying to get that right. I think they're pretty close at this time to having that completed. We still have to do the lights. They haven't come in yet, so all the LED fixtures on there are still the old ones. So they look bad, but they are. We've got some that'll be coming, and they're close to finishing the underpinning out there as well on the field house. Over Christmas break, John and Brian and Raymond, really that crew, did a full retrofit of LED lights to the elementary campus, so that's all the way through every room, hallway, library. they got all of those in. Ms. Fouch, everything looks good over there, doesn't it?
Shining bright, sir, shining bright.
So they did a good job of trying to get all that in. We're going to get, we've applied and they've come out and done a final inspection of a rebate from SWEPCO. Our goal is to get it to be about, I think it's about $1,000 if we can get that, which would be almost 50% of what it cost us to buy the lights to put those in there. We were able to get $1,700 back from the gym retrofit we did 2 years ago. So we're going to try to continue to do that. They're going to come out and did some inspection with these ACs. I don't know that the rebates are near as high, but they're going to look at, we may be able to possibly get some rebates from SWEPCO as well on that. So that LED is a good way for those. They're predicting that should save, SWEPCO believes it'll be almost $3,000 over a total year for just reduction in electric. Now that's based on that rate. Now that rate certainly could change, but for that and us to be able to get almost about 40% of it back from them is a pretty good deal. So we've got some extra lights. On some of our next breaks, we're going to look at doing the cafeteria. We did not do the elementary gym. We kind of ran out of time to do it. But our goal will be to slowly, over these next several breaks, in summertime that we can, is to buy those. It was about $3,000 in LED lights for them to go in there, and they're just retrofitting them. So our next one would be the secondary schools to go in there and do those. So they did a good job on that. Donation to the district. We got a $1,000 donation for Mr. Cooley. He said, as usual, to academics and not athletics. So I certainly want to thank Mr. Cooley for his continued support. What we've done with that several last years is we split that into $500 going into each library for them to buy library books for it. So Mr. Cooley's always been very thankful of that going to academics, and we're certainly very thankful for him and his support. He may not always be here, but I guarantee you he'll post it out on Facebook for us. Good. He's always there. I know he's enjoyed some of the COVID, so we certainly appreciate him for that. Board training. I know several of us were able to go to Region 8. Several of us were not. So I'm going to be in contact with you, but we do have several board members that do need to get legislative updates, and then also child abuse awareness, I think, was the one that we saw. But Ms. Holly and I will work on that before our elections in May. We have to have that meeting, I believe, in April, where we post board hours. So we have several board members that have plenty of hours, and some of y'all that I need to get with to make sure that we get all mandated trainings in before they release it. No, so the legislative update, what I found would be probably the best bet is online. TASB offers an online service, so I'll get with you and we can pay for that. And it's their version of it. And then also that for that child abuse, there's some online stuff. So no, you don't have to go to Region 8, but we do need to get that to everybody. So we will be in contact personally with each of you that need that. Needed repairs. We've got a couple things that have come up. One, the restroom in the cafeteria. We had a drain that backed up and it flooded, not bad, but flooded back into there. But some of the BCT tile is starting to come up, particularly in the faculty restroom there in the cafeteria. That is an area that will need an abatement to remove, but it's at a point where that tile is starting to come off. So at this point, we've closed it until we can have that. So we're getting prices of what that would take for us to go ahead and do it. That cafeteria has 3 areas that are still considered in need of abatement, which are the restroom mastic in the faculty, the 2 restrooms on the stage, and then the ceiling tiles above the suspension. Now, the ceiling tiles above that is a much bigger project that we don't need to try to get into at this point, but we are going to look at what it would take to go ahead and abate the 2 sets of restrooms, but it will be a cost that will have to occur there. So we're still getting some numbers on it. The second area, if y'all remember Windstream, we had the issue with Windstream and the drainage pipe that was rusted out. We had a sinkhole that was, we've got another one that is now developed a little further east of that. And so we had someone come out and look. All of that from the concrete out is metal tin horn that's underneath there that we're afraid is all starting to completely rust out. Now from there up the road back up here is all PVC and plastic. And it looks like at some point maybe that was redone. I think part of it even may be clay, so we're not going to see the rusting out of that. But from that concrete out, it's starting to rust out again. So we've got another sinkhole that we've got marked off right now, but it is a hazard that we're gonna have to look at, what that's gonna take to dig up and fix, and if we have to do the whole thing, that's gonna be a major, much more major expense that we may have to look at. We may be able to dig that one area out, and it may not. We may be able to just get through it. At some point, we're going to have to replace probably that section of metal drainage that's back there. So just a few things that we hadn't planned on that have come up that, we're going to have to look at how we can do that. All right. That's all I have.
Next item is executive session. We'll go in executive session at 7:45 PM. Discussion personnel according to Texas Government Code Section 551.074. Conduct annual superintendent evaluation, Section 551.074. Discuss and consider employment contract superintendent, Section 551.074. And discussion of personnel, same, Section 551.074. Take about a 5-minute recess and we'll reconvene in executive.
Got pull over to you.
We're coming back to the open session at 9:24 PM. Next item on the agenda is consider and take action on employment contract of superintendent. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to extend the superintendent's contract 1 year with a 5% raise.
Have a motion to extend 1 year, but to maintain a 3-year with a 5% raise. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second with Rusty. All in favor, raise your right hand. It is unanimous. Next is motion to adjourn. Have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'm not seconding it.
Second. Do we have a second? All in favor, raise your hand. Are you going to vote for it?
Yeah, I'm leaving.